By 2025, Canada must fill an additional 250,000 jobs in the digital economy. On top of that, rapid advancements in generative AI are reshaping the landscape of work, causing many Canadians to reevaluate how the job market will be impacted. A report by McKinsey estimates that 1.2 billion employees worldwide will be affected. This is equal to 50% of the global economy and will disrupt $14.6 trillion in wages. Amidst these trends, Canadian employers are undergoing a massive transformation and are tasked with upskilling their existing employees while also recruiting new talent for vacant positions to remain relevant in our increasingly digital economy.
In 2021, a StatsCan survey found that more than half of Canadian businesses said that their current workforce is not fully proficient to perform their jobs at the required level, and many of those job elements are digital literacy based. Furthermore, the Conference Board of Canada says that over the next 10 years, 9 out of 10 jobs will require digital skills.
With more and more jobs requiring digital skills, increasing numbers of Canadians who do not possess them are being left behind. In today's tech-centered world, not possessing critical digital skills means being excluded from the bulk of meaningful social, political, and economic activity. Digital skills enable people to create, communicate, and collaborate, all critical soft skills required for success in any job or endeavor. And Canada is facing a considerable challenge. We must accurately identify the key digital skills required for success in the future economy, revamp our education and training structures to deliver them, create and strengthen the ecosystem partnerships required to ensure skilling programs match workers' and employers' needs, and address barriers to access for marginalized groups. So what must be done to get Canada on track to meet these critical needs for digital skills? Produced in partnership with Microsoft Canada, TheFutureEconomy.ca spotlight on digital skills for Canada's future economy dissects these issues with 4 topic experts who provide their insights on what must be done now and by who for Canada to achieve our digital skilling goals. A 2022 Coursera report ranks Canada 75th in the world in terms of skills proficiency. Worse still, Canada actually slipped 23 spots from its ranking the previous year, now sitting well behind our neighbor the US at rank 29. Meanwhile, developing economies such as Indonesia, Kazakhstan, and Venezuela are also outperforming Canada in terms of the skills of the future. Why is that? We must first look at whether Canadians have access to the tools they need to achieve digital literacy and whether today's digital skilling programs actually address the key pain points for Canadian talent. Findings from a Deloitte Canada report give us an idea of the factors contributing to Canada's poor performance. It states that 42% of Canadian households, almost half, do not have broadband speeds above the CRTC's recommended minimum. Furthermore, only 44% of respondents under the age of 35 feel their education prepared them to succeed in the digital economy. And finally, nearly half of respondents said they did not know where to go to gain digital skills. These problems are further amplified for marginalized, rural, and Indigenous Canadians. The data is clear. Canada is falling behind and has serious work to do on its skilling fundamentals in order to improve our position in digital skilling for the future.
Youth living at or below the poverty line, Indigenous citizens, new Canadians, LGBTQ citizens, and women tend to be less represented in digital jobs than the rest of the population. Right now, a lot of skilling opportunities are taking place or are available to citizens who have 3 things: access to functioning technology, proximity to urban centers, and the time and money to engage in skilling opportunities, some of which run for months or even years. And by definition, if you are a new Canadian, if you live in a remote rural community, if you're an Indigenous citizen, if you are living at or below the poverty line, your opportunity to participate in skilling for the digital world is severely limited.
Some may point to the fact that as Gen Zers start entering the workforce en masse, the problem of a lack of digital skills will somehow repair itself. But the truth is, almost half of Gen Z respondents in a recent survey said they feel underprepared for work in terms of the required technical and digital skills. And as older generations increasingly retire out of the workforce, they are taking their legacy knowledge and skills with them. So how are Canadian organizations dealing with this? How difficult is it to set up the right processes to ensure a smooth and long-lasting digital transformation?
Back at the pandemic, we saw organizations that may have had a 18-month, 36-month transformation plan need to be executed in a month, in some cases over a weekend, as services needed to suddenly shift online, be it private sector or government services. And we're still feeling the repercussions of some of those moves as that technology, if you will, settles into the organization. New processes need to be designed. Putting a front-end app, for instance, is in some cases the easier thing to do. Rebalancing the organization behind the scenes to take advantage of some of these new technologies and the new digitization, the front ends, is a longer and frankly, a more challenging role for many organizations.
Where does that leave Canadian workers?
As technology has evolved, so has our interaction with it. I was 14 years old when I first had a computer with internet access. And nowadays, youth learn to navigate on a computer or a smartphone before they start eating solid food. At the same time, even though young people have technology as their day-to-day life, they still need to be prepared to become digital citizens with digital emotional intelligence and skills.
And as more emerging technologies become critical to success in our digital-first future economy, both current and future workers will need to be even more intentional when it comes to planning their digital skilling journeys.
We think about emerging technologies. We think about technologies that we thought were emerging 10 years ago, and they're clearly here to stay. They end up eventually in the workplace, one form or another. So we spend a lot of time thinking what skills are really required as these emerging technologies proliferate throughout corporate Canada and the government. Something comes to mind like the metaverse. Not yet mainstream, but it will be. Trust me on that. Many predictions about where and how that potential will come about. Or think about quantum computing and the recent federal government investments in there. When we look at industries across the patch, certain ones are always going to be in demand. And from our lens, rising to the top of the list, I'd say cyber, anything in and around cybersecurity, data analytics, encryption, cloud computing. These are all fundamental bases to build upon.
Canada's Information and Communications Technology Council has listed the top skills that are most important in the future of ICT, government, finance, healthcare, manufacturing, professional services, and other industries in Canada. It's crucial to recognize that these digital skills are not only important to companies in tech. Digital adoption and digital skills are increasingly seen as a way to make Canada's traditional industries more sustainable and therefore more competitive in our future economy.
You take, for example, agriculture. We now have the technology and the capability to get down to sort of, at a per, square foot level of precision agriculture as to what type of seed, what type of fertilizer, how much water, exactly when, using a combination of IoT or, Internet of Things devices along with satellite imagery, 5G connectivity. And so while it's true that historically that's maybe a business in that example that didn't have a ton of quote unquote high tech embedded in it, we now are in this world where these things can be brought to bear at scale and at a reasonable cost. And in this case, you get better crop yields, you get less wastage, you can rotate the crops in a better way to facilitate better use of the land and stewardship of the land and all of that. What's needed though is the people that have those core skills to intersect with the people that have the domain knowledge and the expertise. And so it's the application of the two together where you get this really nice nexus of digital fluency coming to life and the ability to really build net new business models or radically change existing ones, be it towards, improving outcomes, increasing revenue if you're a business, decreasing costs, avoiding risk, all of those elements.
The forces driving skilling for the future economy are also rooted in the need for business sustainability. The digital skills being developed are also critical to Canada's net zero transition and the green jobs that will drive it.
The transition of Canada's economy from the economy of the 70s and 80s and 90s into an economy that we quite often call a digital economy, and we sometimes call it a green economy. It's a sustainable, environmentally responsible economy so that we are addressing climate change. Those skills are technical at one level and leadership at another level. So when we talk about green jobs, we talk about jobs that are helping us to decarbonize our natural resources sector. They're jobs that are helping us to move faster in terms of reducing our impact on the environment, whether it's in mining or forestry or agriculture or fishing. Those jobs require an ability to understand both the importance of the impact of your industry on the environment and the technologies that are going to help you reduce that impact, and the people and the inspiration that you need for those people, as well as the skills to get that done.
But it's not just about the hard technological skills, such as data analysis. Our experts all agree soft skills, including critical thinking, problem solving, people management, and emotional intelligence, are all crucially important in order to effectively tie in digital skills to an organization's operations and growth.
We live in an era where information and data is being just, produced at this sort of absurd rate. So the data skilling becomes very important, but also the business skilling and the ability to think about the connection of data to existing business models, and also thinking about innovating new business models using the data itself. The connection between being able to reason over that data and then tie it to business outcomes, right? It's one thing to just say, hey, I may be able to reason over my data, but in a silo, that's not especially valuable. The value comes in the value creation towards some type of end, be it a commercial endeavor, be it a public sector endeavor, better healthcare outcomes, better immigration processes, whatever those things are.
There are obviously many important areas to focus our digital skilling efforts on for success in work and life in our digital future economy. Canadian youth, and workers in particular, face challenges deciding which skills they should acquire and in setting aside time to do so. It's clear that they will need considered and concerted support. But what kind of support should it be? Who must be involved in designing and providing it? And how can it address the digital skilling needs of all Canadians?
If we take different parties such as government, academia, and industry, all of these must understand that organizations such as Empower Canada work well with each of these sectors if they all collaborate, and the result is a bigger pool of talented individuals who are enabled to push innovation and progress.
Multi-stakeholder skilling programs like NPowers would not be possible without extensive cooperation among government, academia, and industry.
The theory is this: if we bring organizations and people together around a problem, and we are determined to solve that problem together, we will build a better solution and a better approach if we do this together rather than if we each come up with our own solutions individually. So in our cluster, we are committed to having industry voices, innovator voices, community voices, government voices, academic and post-secondary and research voices around every issue that we look at.
A crucial component of these programs is for them to be accessible to equity-deserving individuals. By creating strong partnerships that prioritize marginalized groups, we can ensure that their needs are met and that the barriers they face can be overcome.
Inclusive economic growth really means around creating opportunities for every person, for every organization, and every community. We have to think left to right broadly about the nation as a whole. And so this is, one of the reasons why, for example, we did form, within Microsoft Canada and the CIBC Foundation, the Social, Impact Alliance, which is really to help equity-deserving individuals get access to skills training needed so they can find meaningful work and sustainable career opportunities, for themselves and their families and their communities. And that's one example. There's so many more that we can contribute to or help sponsor, champion. But I think that my overall message is that we need to think inclusively as we move forward.
But it's not only about having the right skilling programs in place. Companies also have to rethink how they hire and train.
Something we're always reflecting on is what type of requirements do we want for jobs? We believe we can help build skills and reskill people. That may allow us to think a little bit differently around the base requirements and qualifications. For instance, we traditionally would have thought a university education is a minimum entrance for most roles here at Accenture, but we could reconsider that. In today's market, is that level of education necessary across all roles? We believe no. That's also an area where industry, where nonprofits and government can work together. Apprenticeships, digital skilling, if done well, allow organizations across the country to reach a more diverse audience, frankly, a more diverse supply of workforce. And I believe future-proof skills, these fuel economic mobility, and they're going to help create a more sustainable and equitable future for all of us.
No matter what kind of skilling program we develop or who we are targeting it to, one thing is clear: academia, industry, and government must work together in order to ensure that these programs have reach, funding, and the right resources. It's essential that they be targeted at delivering the digital skills that will be needed by Canada's current and future workforce, from all groups, from coast to coast to coast, to meet the skills needs of all industries shaping our future economy. So, we asked our 4 experts for their calls to action on what must be done now and by who to ensure that Canada can succeed in this critical mission to deliver digital skills to all Canadians. Chris Barry puts forward an overarching strategy.
Yes, we can talk about young people and young students, but I would also say it's people who are into their careers and maybe working in a functional area that hasn't yet been touched with a lot of digital skills or skills enablement, and making those investments to actually increase the size of the pie. And in doing so, we do it for the betterment of society broadly. We increase digital literacy broadly, and then we have a larger supply of talent to tap into to satisfy the demand. We've just got to make sure that that talent piece is front and center in terms of how we think about education structures, certification structures, the partnership between government, industry, and the education sphere. That's critical to make sure we're building really a pipeline of talent that can help fuel the next waves of startups, which will grow into the next unicorns, which will grow into the next major companies within the country. And this work really falls to each and every one of us in our own spheres. To me, it's really a national priority.
Sue Page focuses on the role of academia.
The transformation of how education and training is delivered through our traditional educational institutions is critical. It's critical for making skilling opportunities, training and education opportunities available to all Canadians so that we do have an economy that works for all. The opportunity to do that, to transform our educational systems, is going to succeed or fail, not because of technology. It's going to succeed or fail because of mindset. We want our managers, we want our leaders to be part of this community that is being developed to help leaders understand how you lead in the digital world. How do you move quickly? How do you adapt and maintain your agility? How do you deal with things that go wrong, and they go wrong quickly? And how do you pivot? How do you keep people engaged? How do you deal with virtual, remote, or hybrid work environments? The leadership and managerial skills that we need across the country and across sectors for a digital world are different from the ones that we needed 20, 30, or 40 years ago. And so how can we identify what those skills are? How can we make sure that they are skills that are relevant to employers? How can we make sure that we have systems and communities and ecosystems where learners can both learn from experts and learn from each other?
David Morgenstern emphasizes the role of government.
I'd like to see the government and which government, federal, provincial, and this I think is probably both, reflect and understand the need and which skills that Canada should be investing in throughout our education environment and throughout some of the government-funded programs to address these skill gaps. And that's going to take a collaboration between private sector, between academia and the various government organizations, and also look outside of Canada to which countries are doing that very well and investing ahead of the curve, both identifying but also investing ahead of the curve into specific skills that we want to ensure are fundamental in the Canadian workforce.
Finally, Monica Parashiv offers words of advice for Canadian youth looking to acquire the digital skills they will need to compete in our future economy.
When you want to learn a new digital skill, check multiple sources and be inquisitive. There are some challenges, and these challenges come from the fact that there are multiple choices out there, but youth sometimes are not sure what they are looking for in terms of a new skill or choosing the best medium for them to develop that skill. Variety is beneficial for an inquisitive mind, but can become overwhelming for a fearful mind. My advice for youth is to have the mind of an explorer, search on multiple platforms, read reviews, and have a growth mindset. Look for ways to start working on your projects. Don't spend too much time planning them. Just do it.
And when it comes to digital skilling in Canada, just do it we must, or we risk falling behind the rest of the world when it comes to seizing the opportunities of the future digital economy. It will be imperative for key Canadian stakeholders, government, industry, academia, and more to work together to ensure that our skilling programs are designed with future needs in mind, and that barriers to access, whether they be cost, time, or even awareness of the programs themselves, are all overcome, so that all Canadians are empowered to develop the digital skills they will need to thrive in the future economy.